We're here today with Vicki Illa, who is the supervisor over at the Lewis House here in Hastings. Vicki, thanks for coming on the show today.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah. So Lewis House, I know people have heard a little bit about this and know it is a facility, especially for women in our community who are in abusive relationships that need to get out and get away. Maybe just start at the beginning. How did this get formed? How long has it been around? And maybe just give us kind of the nuts and bolts of what Lewis House is all about.
For sure. So Lewis House is part of a larger nonprofit in Dakota County called 360 Communities. And we had our first shelter come about in the late 70s, and that's at our Egan location. And came to Hastings in 2001. Previous to that, our second location was in Inver Grove Heights. So the Lewis Houses are part of our violence prevention and intervention program, which is one of our tiers of many programs within 360 Communities. So in that violence prevention and intervention program, like I said, we have the two shelters, and one being the one here in Hastings. And we also have our outreach services, which part of that is we have somebody based in the police department. So we also have somebody here in Hastings that is based right in the Hastings PD. And so they can assist people with things if they maybe, because not everybody that we help needs shelter. So we actually help a larger portion of people that don't ever need shelter. So we are, our space is a donated space that we were, able to kind of take over, and we house women and children who are fleeing domestic or sexual violence. We've also done, house human trafficking victims. We've had people stay for hours, days, months. It's a 75-day length of stay. Obviously, we do grant extensions, and we do kind of, work. It's all case by case. Mm-hmm. We have staff there 24 hours assisting the families and, connecting them with resources. And so, we have the families that are living there, and then we have the families that may still have their own family or people that are safe to stay with, but still need help with maybe obtaining an order for protection or some safety planning or just emotional support. So we have advocates answering our crisis line 24 hours a day to assist with all those little things that could come up.
So kind of a not just a shelter, but a resource center, and a facility that is there 24/7, whether it's in person, on the phone, that type of resource for women and their families to seek help and to get some assistance in removing themselves from an abusive relationship.
Correct.
Okay.
Yep.
What would you say is the most common service that you provide? I think the stereotype is, it's a women's shelter sort of thing. Right. Is that the primary, or the majority of folks getting things like the legal assistance or the emotional help, or just a phone call and some help and some an ear that they can speak with someone who understands what they're going through?
Right. We do, trying to think of, all these stats and numbers we do, because we take all of that, and there's a lot of what we do is emotional support. I mean, I would say that number of service is huge, because we're providing that every day for all the people that are living there, but also all the people that are calling. And not only are people calling us, but we're also calling them to follow up. So people that maybe we've worked with in the past, we're calling and we're checking in, seeing if there's things that we need to, or that they might need help with.
Sure.
So that one is a big one that I would say we do a lot of, along with that legal piece as well. Like you were saying, we, assist with a lot of, we talk a lot about order for protection, which is like a restraining order. So we help with those, and there's two different orders: an order of protection and a harassment restraining order. So all of our advocates are trained in helping assist a victim with those, and we help women and men, because men can be victims as well. So we can help them in those situations. We pre-COVID were going to court in person with people. So obviously, and I can talk about that in a little bit too, but COVID has changed the way our advocates do some of the community outreach, but we have remained open as far as the shelter goes this whole time. And so kind of going back to your question, as far as the major service, safety planning is another one that I feel like we're constantly talking about and doing and providing with people. And then those tangible things too. So when our families, whether they live there or not, if they're in need of, we give gas cards to, our clients. We provide diapers. We're helping them out with shampoo, conditioner. A lot of our families, when they come to us, have nothing but the clothes on their back. So we're doing, setting them all up with everything that they may need.
Sure. Okay. Well, I'll say this again, but thank you for what you're doing. Obviously, it's much needed. Unfortunately, we have to have. It'd be great if you ran out of clients, wouldn't it?
Yes, many people in this work have said I would be happy to just not have a job. I just pulled up a survey or a quote not a quote, but that might help with the original question of that we last year in our fiscal year assisted over 2,000 individuals over 25,000 times with criminal justice and civil system support. So that includes helping them with victim notification, assistance with restitution, victim impact statements, orders for protection, harassment restraining orders, law enforcement and prosecution interviews, and assistance with accessing family law help. So that's just one stat that I have, so that's huge.
That's amazing. That's really amazing.
Yep.
So one question too is why Hastings, and why is it because we're the Dakota County Courthouse is here, and it's because there's a lot of interaction with the county government and with the legal services that are here, or is it just that Hastings had a need for this type of facility because of police calls or things like that? How did you figure out that Hastings back 20 years ago needed such a facility as this?
Great question. I don't know if I have the perfect answer for that. I know, wherever, because again, it was before my time with Lewis House, but I think yes to pretty much everything you said. I would say that we're the county seat. We have, law enforcement right here, all of that. But we kind of, where we're at in Hastings kind of helps represent this part of Dakota County. The more rural part, there's, the southern part of the county where Egan is, going to be able to kind of reach that area of Dakota County. So, they have the bus line, they're able to connect. So since I've been with 360, I've always kind of advocated to have a program here in Hastings, to continue to have a program here in Hastings, or at least this part of Dakota County, because I think it's important to be able to reach the Farmington, Rosemount, and then rural, like all of our townships and things as well.
Right.
We have a really close relationship with Dakota County Sheriff's Office and the Hastings Police Department.
When you hear from a victim and they come to the shelter or they call up, what's the most prevalent issue? Is it just that the husband or the male partner is physically abusive? Is it emotional abuse? Is it something that they've just reached such a crescendo of violence or intimidation that there's no other way, that they feel like they can't escape it any other way than just to leave?
We get a lot of phone calls of, it's hard to really say because every phone call is so different, but we get phone calls also from the police departments themselves that they're on the scene, and they need us to assist with talking with the victim. And so it's going to be a combination of the verbal abuse, the physical abuse. Most people, when they think of domestic violence, they're thinking of, well, he hit me, or, they did this or that, right?
Yeah.
They don't, no one really talks a lot about the emotional abuse piece. And those, I would say we do hear on every day about how horrible, and how do I get out of this situation? And there's so many barriers to leaving. And so if I had to say one happens more than the other, I mean, it's really hard to say.
Mm-hmm.
Because everybody's situation, some have all of the different types of abuse going on, and some, would say like the emotional abuse is what I'm dealing with the most. A lot of the survivors we are talking with would probably say that the emotional abuse is worse, because it's harder if you can't, go high top, like if you just looked at me and, you wouldn't know what's going on with me. Right.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of just talking and providing support and trying to kind of get down to the, lack of better words, nitty gritty of what's going on. And then
Mm-hmm.
and helping a victim understand that they can get out, that they don't need to rely on their partner for financial reasons, or
Mm-hmm.
I hear a lot of, well, they're a good parent. They're, they don't mean it, but we're struggling. Okay. But you don't deserve to be in that situation. Right. So our advocates are having a lot of conversations about, and just kind of almost educating victims on their own rights as a human, and what their options are out there in the community, and whether it's something here at 360 that we can help them with, or something that we can one of our partners can help.
Okay.
Like I mentioned earlier, we partner with all the police departments. Not everybody's comfortable with working with police, but maybe there's other avenues.
There's probably a lot of perceptions or misperceptions out there in the public when they hear about this type of service, that there's a certain demographic, or there's a certain age or an income group or gender or
Mm-hmm.
ethnicity.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess probably, and I'm going to anticipate your answer, is that there really is no one specific, category that you can put a victim into, or an abusive spouse into.
No. I obviously, certain things come into play that can maybe increase chances, or, but I've been with 360 over 10 years. I've seen people of all colors, all, different backgrounds, all ages. I've helped young, old. I used to facilitate a support group, and I had an 85-year-old woman who would come, so I've seen it. I haven't seen it all, but I've seen a lot. And
Mm-hmm.
You're right. There is not one specific anything. Like, anybody can experience domestic violence and or sexual violence. Like I said, I've had people I've worked with that, they have everything that you're looking at on a piece of paper. You'd say, oh, well, they've got everything. They've got it all. They've got the nice house and the cars and the kids and all this. But behind closed doors, there's more going on.
Right. Right.
And so, like I had kind of mentioned, that I think there's certain things that might escalate situations, alcohol, drugs, financial concerns and issues. But it doesn't mean that just because you have those things that there's going to be domestic violence either.
Mm-hmm.
So
Do you think, and maybe this is a philosophical question, but do you think that is there ever a situation when you can anticipate that someone is going to become violent or become abusive? So, for example, if there's a financial situation, or if there is alcohol or drug use in the home, and maybe it hasn't gotten to that point yet, but Bob is maybe susceptible to a situation like this, just kind of anticipating that Bob might be getting upset here in the
Mm-hmm.
future. Do you ever work with someone like that who maybe hasn't experienced the abuse yet, but they anticipate that something's brewing?
You just made me think of the cycle of abuse when you asked that question, because that's a tool or kind of a thing that we help educate, victim survivors, or maybe just the youth in the community or anybody in general on, like, kind of like, how is there a way to know that this might happen? And sometimes I think if they're like an abuser that is, I would think your question was like, what if they haven't abused yet, like physically?
Mhm.
There's
Mhm.
probably some red flags
Okay.
that are going to come up, like, different things of, are they controlling? Are they not allowing you to work? Are they not, they might word it as, well, I just want you to be a stay-at-home parent, but then all of a sudden, and which sounds great, right? Well, maybe pre-COVID. But and then, there's all these things that they might sound really great at first, but then you kind of, if you step out and look at it, it's not what it is. So, isolating you from friends or family, um, you know, having, maybe they're not violent towards you yet physically, but they've been violent towards your, like, animals, your pets, things like that. Um, so there's usually some sort of red flag
Okay.
that could happen. And then if it's someone that maybe they had an outburst, but then things got better, that's where I was thinking of that, like, cycle of abuse.
Hmm.
So, usually, like I said, there might be some calm, but then there might be some tension, like, building up. And that could just be like small little outbursts, or, um, different little things going on that the victim starts to kind of become fearful again. And then
Yeah.
another incident happens, another, like, a big outburst, or maybe a physical altercation, things like that. And then there's that, I'm sorry, I bought you flowers, I won't do it again, I didn't mean it. And then, that kind of piece, and then it kind of calms down. And that's what we always call the cycle of abuse.
Okay.
Um, and for some people, the time in between each thing can be really short, or it can be long. And that's what's hard about all of this that we're talking about. It's like, case by case, everything is gray. It can be definitely difficult.
Sure. And you mentioned pets, but also the children
Yes.
that are involved, where the spouse may try to pit the children against the victim,
Hmm.
or say, well, we had this argument because your mom did this, or whether it's true or not.
Hmm.
How does this influence children? Obviously, it's got to be very traumatic. Someone that is growing up in a household like this, where they see things and it's baked into their consciousness of what they will become a parent. They will become a parent maybe someday.
Right.
Psychologically damaging to them, and this is what you hear, is that this is
Yep.
the cycle of generations of abuse,
Yep.
not just emotional, but alcohol and things like that too.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
how
And
are the kids impacted by this? I'm sure it's just awful.
huge.
Yeah.
Yeah. They're impacted, you know, greatly. And some parents would say, well, they never really witnessed him hitting me, or, but just if you think about trauma in general, like if I'm the mom and I'm being abused, and maybe my kids never see me physically hurt, but it's changing me as a mom. So they're still being affected. They're being affected by, me not being able to parent them the way maybe I want to. Or like you had mentioned, the other parent saying, well, your mom is doing A, B, C, D, and it's her fault, that victim blaming type stuff.
Yeah.
And being the kids in the middle and using that's very traumatic, and it's going to affect the way that they parent, the way that they have relationships. And so we have a lot of moms that are like, I need to get out of this situation. Like that's their breaking point when they see behavior in their kids change, or they realize I don't want my kids to think that it's okay for them to be in a relationship like this. We do at both of our locations have a family youth advocate that, is specifically trained to work directly with mom to make sure those kids are getting services. Maybe it's therapy, making sure that they're, meeting all their school needs, just really getting connected with mom on that, pushing everything else aside, letting the other advocates kind of help them with that, and then working with mom on how to best help their kids. I mean, we see kids from birth to 18 that come with their moms to the shelter. And the other piece to that is that we have a community educator, Shelley, who goes out or virtually on Zoom and does a lot of education with our youth. And we have curriculum that is teaching our youth in the schools or maybe at churches or other programs that educate them on what is a healthy relationship, what are some red flags, what are ways that you yourself can be healthy to make sure that you have healthy relationships in the future, things like that.
How do you help men who are maybe thinking, oh geez, I'm an abusive spouse? Well, how do I get help?
Right.
What sort of resources do you have for men that realize that they're jerks?
It's a great question, and kind of that's the biggest thing is if they recognize that what they're doing is wrong. So, that's what you're talking about is a culture of domestic violence. It's just like anything, cultural alcoholism, anything in general, like it's what we're used to, we continue it on if we don't make the choice to change it. So if you have an abusive partner who recognizes that they need change, there are places out there that do help. There are batterer programs is what they call them. We don't directly work with the abuser, but we have resources to connect people with like programs that have those specific, like, it's almost like school that they go to. It's a support group. It's kind of retraining their brain in a way to realize that this is not how we treat our partner. This is not how we treat our kids, that what I grew up in wasn't right. The biggest thing I tell victims and survivors that of this, that they're like, well, he can't help it. Like he grew up this way. This is just how it is. You make a choice to continue being what you know, or to make a change and be something better than that. So if they decide, like, as the, abuser, that they don't want to be that way and that what they're doing is wrong, that's the first step. Okay. Then from there, they have to take the steps to change. A lot of it is therapy and, maybe, changing kind of just in general how they're doing things and being okay with doing so.
So what happens in a situation where the kids stay with the abuser?
And
they stay with dad, and the mom has to, and they maybe either they turn against dad, or they turn against mom, and mom just leaves by herself, or scenarios like, I mean, you could do.
Yeah, there's a lot of different scenarios.
Yep.
There's a lot of different scenarios like that can happen. different cultural reasons, or maybe, yes, like you said, the kids are picking, the other parent's side. Dad, we'll say dad in the situation, the dad side, the um, maybe the mom who's fleeing, she's like, well, they're just going to be, I don't want to disrupt what their life, so I'm just going to leave them. We see a lot of different situations like that. So a couple different things. I mean, if they end up getting like a order for protection, kind of restraining order type thing, they can work out custody all within that document, can work
Yeah.
out visitation and all of that. Um, a lot of times we've heard like the abuser won't let the you can leave, but you can't take the kids. And so then that kind of puts them in this like, who's got rights and who doesn't. If they're not married, you know, then there's all these questions we have to ask and find
Yeah.
out. So there's a lot of connecting with legal resources. We work really closely with Dakota County Legal Aid, and in their team there, and try to get people those proper resources. So we've done some, getting some different court documents together to help people get their kids back with them, or working out a better safe visitation plan. There are supervised visitation locations in Dakota County that people can, bring their kids to, and their abuser can still see their kids in a safe environment.
Okay.
So different scenarios. When the kids are involved, I feel like there's always some little piece like that. Women are abusers. They can be abusers. Women can be violent towards other women. We help people in same-sex relationships. I mean, there's all different kinds of abusers.
Sure. Yeah.
Aren't just men, right? But when talking about pets, they actually allow you to put animals on orders for protection on their court document to protect your animal, because that's how often they are used as a form of control, where the abusive party is hurting an animal, or threatening to hurt an animal,
Mm.
or threatening to keep the animal. You think of a lot of people that maybe don't have children, that their pets are their children. So then
Yeah.
there's custody debacles with their pets as well.
Yeah. The
Really
fur
scary.
babies.
Yeah, they're fur
Right.
babies, exactly. So it's scary, and it's another thing that we do help with. So we do, in the shelter itself, we obviously allow service animals, and there's certain other scenarios where we would, but we work with the Day One program that has a pet safe housing program. So sometimes people, when they're fleeing, they're like, well, now I have these animals I don't know what to do with, because they can't come to my mom's with me, or they can't come to shelter,
Mhm.
or whatever, but they're my pets and I don't want to leave them. So there's a pet safe housing program out there that we connect them with and get their animals hopefully placed in a safe place, just temporarily.
You have animals that will go with the victim to court as a support animal. Maybe
Mm-hmm.
talk a bit about that.
You have two victim support dogs, Ranger and Coco. Ranger is with our outreach advocate, Stacy. She is on that outreach team I was talking about before, and she's based in Apple Valley, or at the Apple Valley Police Department.
Okay.
And then Coco is with Heather, who's the handler of Coco, and she is over at Lakeville in Farmington. And so what those dogs are for is they do a lot of their own little emotional support. They are great, by the way. Love them.
Hmm.
They've gone to court with like children who have had to, you know, provide statements. They've worked, in the courthouse. Any of our advocates are working with someone and they think they could benefit from having these dogs. Then they work with the handler of Coco and Ranger, and decide if that's the best fit for them. They're allowed in most courtrooms, not all. Again, with animals, there's always those that are fearful and those that have some allergies. So we work, it's case by case, but they do provide a great service. Over 200 times last year that we utilized those victim support dogs for emotional support and court support. Think of how stressed everybody is right now. I mean, the
Yes.
world is stressed, right? So we knew, we kind of had this fear back in March, like we're going to see an increase. We're going to see an increase of calls, people trying to leave, all of those different things. And I think we were surprised and not surprised throughout all of this. As far as, you know, at first we weren't getting as many calls of people trying to leave. And I think it was because they were home with their abuser.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yes.
it's kind of hard to make those calls. And then we had those other people that didn't want to come to shelter because they were afraid of getting COVID. So there's
Right.
kind of navigating some of that. And so like when we had the stay-at-home orders and people were quarantining, they're doing this with their abuser. So that then created additional safety risks for victims and making it harder for them to reach out for help. We worked with like our state coalition to create different flyers and information to post all over social media, kind of provide to any essential businesses, and also worked with our law enforcement to just kind of help communities know that we were all still open and ready to help, and kind of help educate like, hey, we're still here. We know you might be at home, but we're still here. And if you need
Right.
help, we're here to help you. So
Okay.
then we also started doing sort of like different virtual, like remote services. But that can be hard for those that don't have access to technology. And especially in the beginning of this, people were really not having access to technology. I feel like more and more now, you know, with kids getting stuff from school, that people are having ways. But again, we're working with our partners to make sure people have access for those Zoom court hearings
Mm-hmm.
or getting court documents online. But we continue to assist victims through all those barriers, and have done some of the stuff. We just had to continue to do it in person and make sure we're practicing, you know, the social distancing and mask wearing.
Right.
The biggest, not the biggest, but a big part of this obviously is our shelter, and that it is communal living, and it's really hard to social distance all the time. But we've made changes to shelter capacity and spacing, and we, you know, work with our, again, other shelter programs and our state coalition to get a joint hotel project.
Okay.
So we're, since about, I think it's been since April, May-ish, we have a hotel that we're utilizing for overflow people so that we're not putting too many people in the shelter. And also if we have any families that are at higher risk of COVID or have COVID symptoms, we've been able to move them over there to do their quarantine or isolation to prevent from any spread. So that has been a huge piece. Obviously, in the shelter itself, we're treating it just like a business. Every staff and resident is to wear a mask at all times. Obviously, if they're in their own room, they don't have to wear a mask in their room, but in the communal areas, they need to be wearing masks. We've worked. We've had great community support with people donating masks and cleaning supplies, and that's been wonderful. We're just continuously educating everybody that comes through our doors about how to make sure we're hand washing, make sure, there's hand sanitizer. We have a grant that we've been provided with that has helped. We've had maids coming in. So Dakota County has given us a grant that has helped pay for extra cleaning of the shelter.
Oh, okay.
And then another grant that we have that's helped. So we have helped get our rooms cleaned every time somebody moves out as well. So there's been lots of support that way. The other big piece that we didn't really talk a lot about is that we provide sexual assault support to victims, especially during their forensic exams at the hospital. Now, of course, with COVID, that has changed as well.
Mm-hmm.
So we have worked with our forensic nurse programs to create different referral forms for victims, provide some phone advocacy, and we're kind of currently working on other ways to connect with the victims just to make sure that they have our support during that time as well.
Well, let me just, again, thank you for what you're doing and all of what 360 Communities are doing for our community and for Hastings and all of Dakota County here. Obviously, it goes very unnoticed most times, but when we do talk about it, I hope people are supporting you. If someone really believed in the type of work that you are doing, either at 360 or at Lewis House specifically, how would they help you? How would they get a hold of you? Is it something that they can volunteer? Is it something, do you need stuff? Do you need like household goods, things like that? Do you need money? All of the above? Maybe just let people know, if they really feel like they wanted to write a big check to you, how would they make that happen?
Okay, well, thank you. And there's a few different ways to give back and donate. Currently right now we've kind of put a hold on our volunteers, but that's one big way that people give back, and that we will be looking for hopefully in the near future to bring back. And we always do have a hard time getting people right here in Hastings that want to volunteer, I think maybe because they don't know if they can. Another thing is, yes, we do take donations, and we're always looking for hygiene products, because like I had mentioned earlier, is that people are coming without anything on their just what they're wearing. So toothpaste, toothbrush, all of those things that we all kind of need all the time. As far as donations go, we're always in need of household items, or like hygiene products, I should say. As far as household items go, we do provide people with things when they move out. So we provide like pots, pans, that sort of thing. That is one thing that we will take gently used. And as far as monetary donations, people can either go online and donate online, or they can, give us a call at the shelter and set up a time to just drop something off. They can mail it in. And, if people want it to go specifically to something, they can always reach out to me and talk with me directly as well. Yeah.
Okay. So if someone wanted to do that, or to get a hold of you otherwise, just from either a victim standpoint, or from just a general member of the community that wants to help out and wants to give support to you, website, phone number, that sort of contact information.
For sure. So our 24-hour crisis line, and same way to get a hold of me, because they can always transfer to my voicemail, is 651-437-1291. And again, that's answered 24 hours a day, and they can always get a hold of me if needed. And then our website is www.360communities.org. So 360communities.org. And under that, again, you're going to find all the information I talked about today and more, along with, how to get a hold of us in case, you need that. So.
Okay. And they can specifically go on 360communities.org and drop down to Lewis House.
Yep.
And find out more about Lewis House specifically. Okay.
Yes. I think the biggest thing is that we are still here, and we're here and open, and here to serve and here to help those in our community. And like I had mentioned before, that, domestic and sexual violence has, it happens to more people than, we realize. And it's, we want to be here. We want to be here to help. So
Sure.
Reach out if you need something.
Well, Vicki, again, thank you very much for coming on the show today. I really appreciate it. I know you're a busy person and have a lot going on, especially now with the pandemic and things. So again, thank you so much, and keep up the good work.
Thanks, Tom.